Hello
Hi.
and welcome once again to Print Island and to the Lighthouse. My name is Richard Askam. I am the Lighthouse Keeper here on Print Island, and that gives me the enormous opportunity to invite who I like to come and sit in my lighthouse and chat with me today. And today I've got somebody who I've known a long time. I've been trying to work out how long I've actually known Kevin for, but maybe he can help me. Or if he can't remember either, then neither of us know. But Kevin, welcome to the Lighthouse.
Hey, how are you, Rich?
I'm really well, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, it's a little bit cold today on Print Island, but I got the heating turned up, so all is good.
Always good. And I think it goes, would it be Drupa 2014,
Wow,
potentially?
gosh, that's longer than I thought. So
Yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
I mean, to be fair, when you get to my age, remembering what I did this morning is a start. So but it's all good. But listen, if there's anybody watching this that doesn't know who you are, give us the brief rundown. Give me a flyby of who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
So my name is Kevin Goeminne. I am the co-founder and current CEO of Chili Publish. Chili Publish is a company that helps companies or brands today to create content at scale. We started many, many moons ago. We started in 2010. And then today we've kind of are in the fourth generation, I would say, of the company and the product, which is lots of fun to have seen all those different things. And I think you can see in my background, I do like some sports, and I'm the kind of CEO that doesn't know to choose in the morning, will I first check Salesforce or GitHub? So, like, am I going to be commercial today or am I going to be technical? So that kind of describes me, my personality.
Perfect. And for those of you that are watching this and reading Kevin's surname there on the screen and thinking, how did he go from those letters to Goeminne? That's a Belgian thing, right?
It's a Belgian thing, yeah. I live in Brussels. Brussels is home, although I travel quite a bit, but Brussels is home. Yeah, and you say Goeminne. So we have we
Goeminne.
have we have a G, a Goeminne,
It's
and the G
all in the
becomes a
throat.
G. Yeah. But however, I like it when people call me gold mine, like sometimes.
Okay, we'll go with that. I think that's great. So listen, you mentioned 2010 there. I mean that's kind of and that's what takes me back really, and the reason we've known each other as long as we have because it was right at the beginning of the growth of personalization, and that sort of breakout moment. I think I come from the drinks business, as you know. You come from the software side of things. And all those years ago, that's 16 years ago now, Kevin.
I just turned 40 in December, so don't
Yeah,
remind me.
there we go. Yeah, I wish I'd only turned 40 in December. But all those years ago, there wasn't any of the tools or any of the tricks, or there was nothing, was there? So what made you dive in to a problem that nobody knew that they had right at that moment in time?
Well, so I think back in 2000, well, we started looking at this in 2009, and I had already, together with my other co-founder, Bram, we already had another software business. And so we were looking at this space, and I remember back in the days, it was the Xeroxes of this world, who created what they would call web to print solutions. And we would look at these things and we would find them, very legacy already in 2009, very closed source platforms, barely any APIs, very expensive for what you could do with it. And so that's when we thought, being just native software people, we were like, wait, whoa, we need to do this in the cloud, it shouldn't be on-prem, and all those things. And so we immediately started diving into that. And we created back then, which I think was still a fantastic idea, which was an online document editor, right? It was this idea, this concept of trying to emulate what InDesign could do, but then in the browser, and then basically apply constraints on that. And so I think for many, many years, it was a very good product and focus, right? It was very much focused back then on helping printers, because that back then a lot of printers were trying to diversify and see, hey, how can we get customers closer? How can we land bigger accounts? How can we become more strategic? And how can we work a bit more upstream?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I remember from my own days back when we were doing personalized labels in the wine business, and there was nobody that we could find to work with that had every part of the solution. There was lots of people with bits and a dot here and a dot there, but nobody had joined the dots. And along came Chili Publish, and really you started to join those dots, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah, we did. I mean, like that was always the vision, right? To automate the content supply chain, we call it. And today, the content supply chain has become more diverse than anything, and we're still, by the way, very, very much focused on that. The only thing is that back those days, we really started with a product focused on printers, focused on print. Today, we are a true multi-channel product. AI first. We are serving a lot of Fortune 500 companies directly. And we have this unique vision of building one tool that is perfect fit for complicated print processes. So you're talking about all the complicated things that would go into printing a label or even packaging or any kind of print material. But today also being able to output video, animated content, and really offering one tool that can serve those different, going from very printed product to all the way digital product. That has really been our focus, and I'm really proud. It's quite unique, If you look today, Adobe has a bunch of products to do different things. If you look at the guys what Canva is doing, very good in the digital space. They've gotten a little bit more into the print space, but when it gets really complicated in technical stuff, they kind of suffer. And then we've got Figma, fantastic company, fantastic product, but mostly still digital. And so I think we truly became number 4 in that space, which is very much focused on finding customers who typically have a go-to-market motion in print as well as digital, and want one solution where they can basically drive all of that content automation from.
And it's a ridiculous question to ask, so I kind of will and won't ask it. But in that space of time, 2010 to today, everything has changed, and then everything has changed, and then everything has changed again. You mentioned that you're on the fourth version now, fourth iteration. Talk me through when one became two, two became three. What's the journey look like for you?
But the first thing you have to know is that when we launched the product, we were still in Flash, right? So we launched it in, I don't know, for those viewing who still remember Flash, it was an Adobe product, which Steve Jobs killed by launching the iPad. So we were really proud we had our product and it was working greatly. And then this freaking iPad comes out and they tell us in 2014 that they're going to block off, and that basically it's the end of Flash, which kind of sucked for us because in 2014 we had to shift completely the technology. That was the first iteration. Then we did a big cloud move in 2018 because again the problem is when you're very much focused on the printing industry, we felt that market wasn't moving as fast as some of the brands. So they didn't, back in those days, people still wanted, software that they could host themselves and manage and those kind of things. So in 2018, we had to do a big move there, and we had probably an in-between version. But then, right after COVID hit, we got to a point where we said, okay, well, we started seeing some of the LLM stuff that was appearing. I remember at some point reading a white paper about it, and I was like kind of flabbergasted about it. And so, we were dealing with a software that we've been evolving for the last 10 years, and they have something called in software called technical debt, right? Like at some point, you just can't pay off enough of your technical debt because, customers want new stuff, but it starts to take a lot of time to update the product. So we said, okay, we've got so much experience. In the meantime, we also shift being really focused on printers and agencies to starting to see more and more brands coming directly to us and starting to offering a bit more of a broader platform. So that obviously introduced some other challenges as well. Our users were less technically advanced, so we had to work a lot on usability and those kind of things. So right after COVID, we had two choices basically. Either I was going to dump a lot of money in trying to improve the product, or which is better sometimes to take a clean state. And that's what we did actually in 21, 22. We basically started from scratch. We installed a new team next to the existing team. We completely rebuilt everything from the ground up. And it took us about 3 years to get product market fit with the new platform. But it's the best thing that we've ever done, because now we're scaling, very, very fast. We've got state-of-the-art technology, doing web to print. Today it's about generating content. It's about giving people a design system where you can still have control as a brand. Just things, this concepts like brand kits and controlling tone of voice and brand tone and those kind of things. They all get configured and start using, different techniques out there to basically generate all of that content. And so the last 2 years we've been really killing it. We've got some very, very nice Lighthouse customers. And I think we are very well geared to start, like I said, today we are number 4 in the market. So if you take the 3 giants, you have us, our little humble small company, who's really able to actually compete and win some really big businesses because of our vision and because of the way we approach it and because we're very, very focused.
Yeah, no, I like that. And you mentioned sport earlier on, and I guess you would categorize yourself, even though you're number 4, take the big 3 away and you're the best of the rest.
Well, yes, that's what we like to think. I mean, look, the thing is, obviously, these are massive companies, and sometimes people try to simplify competition, but you got to understand that, Adobe, Canva, Figma, they're fighting so many different battles. So when I say we are number 4, it's obviously on the common denominator.
Yeah.
But there we are really strong, and we've taken more than 15 years of experience understanding what printing is, understanding what text management is, or understanding what kerning is, and leading very technical things, and being able to apply that in a very, very modern product. And that's how we win, right? If you want to do real brand control, like if you think about any retailer, the way how they display pricing, right? It's something that they developed for 10 years long. I mean, try to get that configured in Canva. Good luck. And that's normal. Canva is not focused there. Canva is trying to
Yeah.
build a product that will work for millions and millions and millions of people. So we've got, a very, very important focus area, and I think we excel there. But we bring it with what you would expect from top-notch, tech companies with a very future-proof and innovative vision.
Let me take you back to the brands and 2018, Kevin, because again, from my own experience, I know how protective they were, to a certain extent still are, but at the time, they were very protective of their tech stack. They really didn't want anybody outside of their ecosystem doing anything that they couldn't do themselves, even though they knew they couldn't do it themselves. I mean, that must have been a huge frustration for you to know that you had a solution, but they wouldn't let you in.
Yeah, well, to some extent, that is still today, right? Like we've got some very nice Lighthouse customers. One of them is one of the biggest beverage companies in the world. So I think you can figure out who that is. And so that means that any kind of advertising that you see globally in a physical store or anywhere else is basically produced through our tool. It has a massive amount of users on a daily basis. And so what we see with these big brands is, yes, they want control, but they also understand that they're not tech companies, and they're usually not great at executing technology. So what we did see is the last few years, they started taking big bets on a few vendors, right? And I think some of our customers have taken big bets on us. And they've actually seen good ROI on it, because yes, you can go try to work with one of the massive tech companies out there, right? But if you're not a massive player yourself, it's going to be difficult to steer that roadmap, influence that roadmap, and so on. So I think a lot of these larger brands have found that they can work with, solid tech companies where they can have a big influence on the roadmap. I mean, I wouldn't say control, because that would just lead to a bad product design, right? Like you got to design a product that works for multiple customers, and truth be told, not always the customer has the best idea of where the product should go. Hence why they are not that great at building software themselves. But but I think that we saw a big shift in there, right? And I think it also has to do with the interchangeability of technology. It's not like 10 years ago when you went for one technology that you would be stuck for it, for years. They kind of make it interconnectable, interchangeable. They'll still control data, they'll still control the MarTech stack, but they're more flexible towards connecting with solutions like ours that definitely change. A big thing, of course, in today's world is IT. And so there, of course, they are very concerned, but it's just a matter of organizing it well, deploying it well, making sure that it's clear where the IP sits, and those kind of things. So I do think it can be handled in today's market.
Do you think that COVID and the associated behavioral changes that we were all forced to make in that awful period 5, nearly 6 years ago now, do you think that contributed to the way that, because I find now that brands particularly are opening up much more to partnering with software
Well,
businesses rather than owning. So that whole era where we all had to help each other, do you think that's changed the way that people see this now?
I don't know if it was COVID, honestly. I think COVID definitely helped us um, embrace working, online or from a distance much more, right? So,
Yeah.
so we do see. I mean, sometimes it's crazy, right? We do $1 million deals, and we never even visit the customer, right?
Yeah.
Like we never physically sit down with them. Like I don't know if you could have done that 10 years ago. Maybe
Sure.
some, but definitely not in Europe. Maybe in the US, yes, but in Europe that would have been hard. Um, I do think that for us, speaking for us who sits in the MarTech category, the true breakthrough was actually OpenAI slash ChatGPT. And
Yeah.
why? Because you now are dealing with a CMO that is potentially a bit younger, potentially a bit more educated, and kind of understands and says, wait, why if I can use a prompt? Why does that produce me something? I might not call it perfect, but it's kind of impressive what they're doing. And why am I paying millions to my agency for every dot and dash that they need to
Yeah.
modify? And so what I think is that the brands became a lot more demanding towards their agency partners and said, okay, look, we want to be faster, we want to go faster to market, we want to be able to do more. And so that really spiraled it and that really started accelerating it. Um, and so we really live in that ecosystem, right? Between agents that wants to innovate. And so I think that's kind of pulling that acceleration forward. And I just think a more quote unquote modern CMO who comes less from TV ads, but comes more from a tech background. The Mad Men days are over, I think. And
Yeah.
so it's not, oh, I'll hire the next agency that I worked with for 20 years at this company who's going to help us do strategy and go to market at this company. So I think that changed. They're much more open to innovation. And I
Sure.
think
Yeah. No,
that
I
is
get.
linked to the evolution that we saw around the LLMs and so on.
Yeah. No, I get that, and that's a very good point. Um, question for you. AI, friend or foe?
Well, definitely friend. I think you know, you you would be ignoring something tremendously revolutionary. Now that being, and it's true, and I really mean that. I see it first of all in the way how we as a company operate, like how we are thinking about and how we are deploying agencies. Like I see today, our own marketing team is doing much more impact with less people than before. I mean, I
Hmm.
always joke that, like, just think about this conversation that we're having, right? You have technology helping you to kind of record this podcast. I mean, if you
Yep.
were trying to do this 10 years ago, you needed to hire somebody to come and film. You needed to. So there's a lot of things I think, and so ignoring that is a little bit the same. It's by saying, I want to hold on to the past. I think you got to do it in a smart way, right? You got to have
Yeah.
good people that don't get lazy, because that's a big danger, that people get lazy around technology like AI. It sounds great, so I'll just use that and I'm not double checking it. And I think that's very important. So in the industry, it's definitely it's revolution. I mean, we're now attacking AI, and the speed of execution is going so fast. I see it, like, we put out product releases every week. Like things are going so fast. I could have never dreamed of that 5 years ago. So for me, it's definitely something that you gotta embrace, and but you gotta also have the right mindset and the right people around it. And I see it across the board. For us, it's finance, how they're dealing with their work. Finance is another industry that is very manual, right? They love their Excels. They love
Yeah.
they love all these things, right? And that's because they have a lot of freedom of working. So even there's a lot of room for innovation. If you think about printers, send me a quote. That's just an agent. I mean, that calculates the quote while you're doing it. So there's a lot of opportunities, I think. It's just about finding those. And I read something really well over the weekend, which was somebody who has been experimenting with deploying agents in their own company. And it said, focus on the thing that you've been wanting to do, but that you were never getting to. And try to see if you can deploy an agent for that. And I thought that was very smart, because that's a pretty safe thing. Like, if you're doing 0 today, but you can automate it and you can do 50 of it, it's still going to be better than 0, right?
Yeah.
So those are the areas where you can make incremental increases. I wouldn't focus immediately on things that run really smooth and well. Maybe that's not where you want to go and disrupt
Sure.
immediately.
No, I agree, and I'm with you on friend. I think it's a partner now in everybody's business. I mean, it's been around for quite some time now. Generative AI obviously is the new bit, but I was saying to somebody over the weekend that it's the same people that are scared of it that were scared when their Nokia became a BlackBerry, and when their BlackBerry became an iPhone, and their iPhone became an iPad. So we, over this last period of time, we've been through several iterations of upgrade. AI, generative AI, is another one of those, and I believe it's another tool in the toolkit which is here to help every business.
Well, 100%. I mean, how many people told you back in the days, writing emails on a touch screen, that's never gonna work. Like, I need to feel a physical button. I
Yeah,
think that is a very good example. And closer to our industry, I mean, one of the things that we're heavily involved with these days is, like, if you think of a traditional photo shoots, right? That is completely being replaced by AI. So today, for example, we have technology where you just have a product shot and we can immediately put that in the scene. So if you're thinking about generating ads or promos or out of home, kind of advertising, you can basically just start generating that. Where before you had to hire, a studio, you had to hire a photographer, you needed a food stylist, you needed a product stylist. I mean, you just name it. So, and if you don't take that advantage, your competitor is going to be doing that, and they'll
yeah,
be able to go faster to market. So you're basically not able to match your competition.
yeah, absolutely. So take your mind back all those years to just before 2010. You mentioned 2009 when you first had the idea. Um, where did chili come from?
I wish I could tell you some crazy, story. Um, uh, the, the the truth be told is that we needed to incorporate the next day, and me and my other partner, we had some experiences with starting businesses. In the past, we took these complicated names like Goeminne to try to turn that into a product name, and we know that every market that you hit, it was complicated because you had to do a translation. So we said, let's find something that works. Somebody wrote down chili. Back in the day, we wanted to add publish. Today, I would remove the word publish, but back in the day, we added publish, and the domain name was free. So that's how we became Chili Publish.
That's good. I like that. I've been reading Phil Knight's biography recently about how he started Nike, and it was called Blue Ribbon originally as a company, and he needed to incorporate, and somebody had already got Blue Ribbon, and he'd been on holiday to Greece, and he'd been to the Temple of Athena, and the Temple of Athena is Nike, and that's where that So these things are often quite simple, aren't they? I mean, it's
Yeah.
lovely to have a big sort of a story about it, but the reality is everybody knows what a chili is. Let's call it that.
Well, do you know the story about the brand name Nvidia?
Go tell me more.
It's envy. So envy from our competitors, they call it Nvidia because their competitors would envy them. And they also had this ugly green logo, I mean, to be debated, but they made it on purpose. And so the story is that you don't need good branding to sell a good product. The point was that they never had to change their name. They are still called Nvidia today, which is envious, and they are the company that's today valued at the most money in the world.
Yeah,
So anyway,
yeah. There we
pour la
go.
petite
There we go.
histoire, we say in French.
So listen, I've got you at the top of the lighthouse today. We've got a view, a 360-degree view from Print Island over the whole of the printing industry. What do you see? Give me your thoughts for 2026. What do you see coming down the line this year?
Well, first of all, I think print still plays a relevant role. Like I see it at some of our massive customers who honestly they choose for us because one of the channels that we do really well is print. So I think print will still remain very relevant, right? As a communication mix. Now, that being said, I do think that the print industry needs to, open up its arms to a lot of the technology innovations that are coming. So I think the biggest thing that you'll see is full autonomous agents around coding. I think full autonomous agents around anything that has to do with, hey, send me a PDF, fix it, proof it, as far as that wasn't already done, but now it will be fully integrated. I think those are the two things that these technologies become very capable of. But also think of last minute changes, or even audit tracks, right? As you go through the different processes, who said what, whenever there is a recall or those kind of things, those will all be fully automated by the end of 2026. If you want that, of course. It
Sure.
requires a bit of investment. Another thing that I think in the printing industry will change quite radically is anything that is even remotely close to support or customer support or account management. There's a lot of things to be automated there. Autonomous agents will definitely come into play. They'll understand the billing, they'll understand the quoting, they'll understand, even the artwork that's being produced, where it's being shipped, so that at any given point, I can just get an update on what's happening with my orders. Any problem that might be there, I'll be immediately be able to get an answer. So I think there's a lot of innovation due to happen there.
Good. Well, there's a lot to look forward to, Kevin, and thank you so much for taking the time to join me on Print Island today. I'm going to clear my throat and do my best Belgian and say thank you to Kevin Goeminne.
Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
very much. Bye bye.